Good evening,
What's going
afternoon,
on?
good morning. Hey, what's up, son? Welcome to this week's edition of Uphill Battle, May 7th. It's been a very interesting week. We got a lot of things to cover. This is a jam-packed 90 minutes of ranting and raving and trying to dissect politics in this place called America. Yeah, what's going on, son? How you feeling?
Not much. Like you said, a lot going on. A lot happened this week. So I'm excited to get into it.
All right, well let's get right to it. We can let's start off top. What's your introduction? What's been going on the local site? What you got?
Um, so I have a couple of things from three different states. So on Tuesday there were some primary elections that happened. The main places I want to focus on are in the Midwest. So first is in Indiana, and then followed by Ohio. But starting in Indiana, so little context and backstory for this one. So Indiana was one of the states that Donald Trump called on when he was like really pushing earlier this year. Um, for states to redraw their maps, their electoral maps, to try to give the Republicans an advantage in the election this fall. So this would have been a mid-census redrawing of maps, which does not occur. It usually does not occur. And he was calling on multiple states. So a lot of the big ones were like Texas that you heard about. Louisiana had a bunch of different states. And then obviously this was countered by Democratic states also like trying to fight back against this. So California, Virginia, whose maps actually just got approved and the state, or they just voted for new maps. So in Indiana, in the state house, Republicans have a supermajority. So they put up for a vote, a new map to redraw the maps, and almost half of the entire Republican caucus broke with the president and Republicans and voted along with Democrats to not approve the redrawing of the maps. The president was not at all happy about this. So Donald Trump, he endorsed challenger opponents for a lot of these House members in Indiana. And what happened on Tuesday night, it was primary night in Indiana, and five of the seven, five of them lost. One of them was able to retain their seat, and the other one is currently still too close to call. So we got to have to keep an eye on that one. But yeah, I just want to point this one out in Indiana specifically because it shows one, even if you support him and everything that he has going on, if you support the immigration stuff, if you support some of the economic things, as soon as you break ranks with him on one single issue, you're automatically dead to him. Automatically. And what it shows is that Donald Trump still has a strong influence over the party, even though he's not polling as well nationally, especially when it comes to some of his bread and butter issues like immigration. He's not doing as well as he was, last year or when he was on the campaign trail. So going on from Indiana over in Ohio, um, there was two primary elections that I want to focus on. One is for the gubernatorial election, and then the other one is on the it's for the Senate race, not necessarily just the Democratic or Republican side, but in the Senate race. So in the governor's race, Vivek Ramaswamy is running for the GOP nomination. You might know him from he ran for president back in 2024. He is a biotech mogul. That's how he got his money, and he decided to write a book. I think it was in 2021, basically coming out against wokeness. It was called Woke Inc., and that's how he got made his foray into politics. And he was riding that wave. He was the Indian guy that didn't agree with affirmative action, that didn't agree with a lot of, again, the quote unquote wokeness that was going on within the country, but more specifically in his eyes, within the Democratic Party. So he wanted to run for president, I guess, to try to stop woke from spreading across the country. Obviously, that did not pan out very well for him. But Once Donald Trump got into office and Elon Musk joined the administration and started Doge, Vivek Ramaswamy was right there next to him, and he was going to head up the Doge efforts. But then he decided to move back home to Ohio and run for the governor's race. And Donald Trump almost immediately endorsed him in that race. And last night, or on Tuesday night, he won the nomination. He was running against a YouTuber. The guy, his name was like Casey the Car Guy. It was his first time ever running for office. And yeah, he did not. He was in one of the other. So what happened to Vivek during the presidential primary election is, I mean, come on. The main issue for the Republicans and Donald Trump was immigration and the outsourcing of labor, specifically foreign labor, and for an Indian guy to be running in the office, a lot of the attacks against him was against for his faith, for his ethnicity, and anytime it happened, he would just try to say, "Oh, that doesn't, represent the Republican Party. It's just this select few people or whatever like that." It's like, this place had or hate has no place in this Republican Party. Nobody would ever come out, and try to defend him. No one would ever do it. So the same thing happened in the primary, the GOP candidate, what was his name? Casey Puch. He basically attacked his religion, basically saying, "I'm the only true American that's in this race." But ultimately, the Ohio voters and Trump's endorsement got Vivek over the finish line. So he's going to be the GOP nominee for governor in Ohio. He's going up against Amy Acton, who she headed up the state's COVID response back in 2020 during the coronavirus pandemic. So we'll see what happens in that race. But Vivek Ramaswamy is, almost. So, I mean, we can see the way the wind blows, but he well positioned to be the governor of Ohio. Um, Going on to the Senate race that's there, and this one's really interesting and important. Sherrod Brown, he was the former senator from Ohio. I like Sherrod Brown. He's a populist, but I really like him. It's a shame that he lost his reelection bid back in what was that, 2024? He just lost, yeah, to Bernie Moreno.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, yeah,
2024.
yeah. He just lost to Bernie Moreno, and he's running to go against John Husted, and he is the current senator, but he was appointed after J.D. Vance, obviously became the vice president back in 2024. So whoever wins this race between Sherrod Brown and John Husted, they're going to run. They're only going to serve the final 2 years of J.D. Vance's term, so they're going to have to run again in 2028. So very interesting race. A lot of money is going into that race. Sherrod Brown already has amassed about $27 million on his own, and the Republican Senate Campaign Committee, they pledged about $80 million towards this race. So a lot of money is definitely going to go into the state because Sherrod Brown is one of the rare Democrats that could win in the state of Ohio in 2026. It used to be like a true swing state, but in the last couple of elections, it's just trending more and more in the Republican side. So if he's able to pull that out, that's going to be really good for the Democratic hopes of taking the Senate back um, in November. One final race that I wanted to talk about that was also in Ohio was in the Ninth House District. And this was important because the person who lost the GOP nomination, her name Madison Sheehan, she left the Trump administration. She worked under Kristi Noem. She was one of the deputy directors of ICE, basically, and she left her position because she figured, hey, I was a very high-ranking official, um, working under departments that was one of Donald Trump's main priorities in immigration. So she figured, hey, I have the title, I have the acumen, I could probably just go home and run. So she decided to go and run, and that's all she basically ran on was her time at ICE, being connected to immigration and Trump's immigration efforts. But ultimately, Trump's immigration policies are not that popular, even in the state of Ohio. And she's running in a district that is currently held by a Democrat. And the Democrat that holds it is Representative Marcy Kaptur, and she is actually one of the longest serving women that's in the House, and she's been in that seat since 1983. So they're running in the GOP primary. They're running to try to unseat her, and she ended up losing the election. She lost to Derek Marin. He actually won the nomination 2 years ago and ran against Capter and lost. So he's just figuring, hey, we're going to run it back. So we'll see what happens there. But those are some races that I just wanted to highlight because again, it's very important for the the Democratic Party's chances of taking back the House and the Senate this fall. And then when it comes to the governor's race in Ohio, just interesting to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm gonna add on a couple things to the what you were speaking about in those races. What you did actually cover that I want to hit on is with Ohio. Ohio used to be a true swing state. It used to be one of this like handful of 7 states that will go left or right. Um, and it was very pivotal when it came to national dominance when it comes to presidential elections.
Hmm.
But on the forefront and what the Democratic Party has lost sight on, and we'll get into that a little bit more as this evening goes on when it comes to state politics, local politics, and state politics is something that has been eroded over the last 30 years for the Democratic Party. And a refocusing of that has to be done. In the case of Vijay Ramaswamy, um, being brown and trying to align yourself with whiteness in the Midwest, and and even if you have a R next to your name, he basically won. I don't. I'm not going to use the fact that he won because of Trump. Um, what is it? Endorsement. People that Trump endorsed over the last 3 years, 3 to 4 years, even at the time when he wasn't in office, over 80% of those people lose,
Hmm.
even except if they're in a safe district. But when it comes to primaries, and he run these primary people, it's like against the seven. So 5 out of the 7 lost. It could be 6 out of the 7. That would be like 92%.
Hmm.
His endorsement is poison. They over the last year since he's taken office, over 30 elections, a Republican has not won when it comes to special elections or whatever, even when it comes to anywhere in this country, including Georgia. The interesting part about Indiana and what people need to realize is in a lot of these states, people are not willing to follow the lead because self-preservation is the first law of nature.
Hmm.
You may have went along because you are R and he is the leader of the party. But once these actual rollout and execution of these policies come in, they're very unpopular. And I can truly say this is what I believe. These people have to look their constituents in the eye. The difference between being a state representative and being national and Congress is you're always home. That as a state representative in Dallas, you know this. A lot of times the session is only in like maybe 60 days a year.
Hmm.
This is a part-time job for these people. These are regular businessmen. These are regular workers. They have to look these people in the eye on a daily basis.
Yep.
And you're basically truly, most of these representatives and delegates jobs, they pay you about $40,000 a year. 50. It's according to where you. I can
Yeah.
imagine in these smaller municipalities like Indiana. So they take their job more seriously because they don't have the cover of getting all this money and protection from being in the nation's capital. They literally live there and work there, and they have to deal with their vote with their neighbors, and they're accessible. This is not flying in a lot of the states when you have common sense and the people aren't aligned. So
Hmm.
it's going to be very interesting when you talk about the vote, when you talk about Indiana, and but when you talk about nationally with Ohio, Sherrod
Hmm.
Brown being a populist and being very popular, and it was just the fact that in some instances, the the way the wind blows and people were just in the point of uh let's do let's get rid of the incumbents, especially
Hmm.
people dealing with coming out of COVID and things like that. They was sold a false bill of goods like they never seen the first 4 years of the administration.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also, the biggest thing that you can always tell the white population is a boogeyman. You can always tell them that it's somebody else's fault.
Hmm.
It's it's the trans people's fault when they're only 0.0001% of the population. It's the migrant workers' fault, and especially when you talk about when you in those being in Ohio, Ohio had a high migrant workers. They brought in a lot of Haitians to do work in Springfield.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these were pinpointed efforts. I would tell you this much, and we done had this conversation off air several times when we actually were dissecting the 2024 election. The figurehead that's in that seat is not the brain of the operation.
No.
He
Mm-mm.
has very smart, strategic people that come up with these boogeymen and these tropes that harp on the weak minded electorate because critical thinking and taking responsibility for you not doing well is not part of the white diaspora. It is not in their makeup regularly. It's always a woe is me because for since the beginning of time, well, I'm going to say since the Reconstruction, because not before that, they always could actually point to somebody else taking something from them because them being insufficient and mediocre was still okay because of the color of their skin.
Hmm.
And at this point in this country's history, people are saying no more. And the positive thing that I'm seeing is a lot of people that are in the majority race in this country are waking up and seeing that they are complicit in a system that is set up to actually make them fail as well because they are not part of the elite class. one thing that I do know that and I know you want to move on to the next thing, but it's going to be very interesting with these states that you wouldn't actually really think about.
Mhm.
That's going to be maneuvering because everybody's hurting, and obviously it's something that this country actually. And I know some people be like, "Oh, why would you say that?" I'm saying it's something that this country has to go through. It has to go through. The reckoning in 2020 was something that the country had to go through. The coming out of that and coming into this situation with financially and all the social woes is something that has to be done in order to actually come out the other end in a better position for the country as a whole. Um, what I wanted, I wanted my local thing, which is it seems uh, we always come back to the same thing as when we start talking about you know in our introduction about local, it still winds up being national because everything is connected. I wanted to talk about the governor's race in California.
Thank you.
California, California is has the seventh largest economy, not in the country, in the world. It's a very, very large state that has the most electoral votes. And Gavin Newsom, who's currently the governor, is term limited, so he cannot run. And they are now presently in a jungle, what is called a jungle primary. For us novices that are listening, a jungle primary is a system where as though everybody is in. There is no Democrat, is no Republican primary. It's anybody, everybody that's running are all in there, jungled up together. And at the end of the primary, after primary day, the top two vote getters are going to the general. So it could be two Democrats, two Republicans, two independent, one and one. It doesn't matter. The top two vote getters. Currently, now this is the contest where the former House um, representative, congressional representative Eric Swalwell, who resigned before because of unbeknown SA, you know, wrongdoing, and he dropped out of the race. He was actually the front runner.
Hmm.
Um, so right now, Katie Porter and who is currently, is she a representative or is she a senator now?
No, because she had ran she ran for Senate
She
against Adam
lost.
Schiff, but she didn't, but yeah, she lost.
She
Yeah.
lost. She's a former House member because whose district did she take over? I'm because in the early 2020s, she was a hot name. She was a hot name. I can't remember who she replaced. She replaced somebody popular, but she was more seemed like she was on the like progressive wing, like she was with AOC and
Yeah.
and Presley and Omar and Corey Bush. She was in that group. Um,
Yeah.
but it seems like to me the way she's been coming back now that she's running for governor, she seems like she done pivoted, which happens in a lot of these races when they go for higher office. Because one of the thing is you can be certain a lot of times with politicians when they live or they run in a certain district, they they feel the temperature of the district that they running in, so they actually talk that talk that's going to go over well in that specific district. But when you're talking about uh, going to try to covet the whole state of California and get a majority there, when we're talking about what, how many millions of people are in California? I should have looked that up. I mean, it has to be a
I'm
large
sure
one
it's
to get
over 20. Yeah.
to 20, 30 million people.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the right now who's getting steam out there is Tom Steyer, who is
Mhm.
a wait for it, wait for it, he's a billionaire. And but he's a billionaire who is calling for single payer health care, universal health care, and universal child care. And he believes that even though, as it said, the tax rate in California, and people bitch and complain about the tax rate in California are all the time, and it's majority of the time the rich people, because there's a lot of rich people.
Of course.
He says they should pay more money. He says I should pay more taxes to make life better for California. And I believe people like me should pay higher taxes. It's getting a lot of pushback. Um, but that's the platform he's running on. And he's getting a lot of movement. Um,
Mhm.
how say you? What do you think about that?
No, yeah, I think well, one time star, he, like you mentioned, he is a billionaire, which is crazy because usually, the billionaires, they only care about themselves. They care about, just protecting their wealth and their money. So for him to come out and be like, no, like I want to be taxed, please, like tax me. He's like, it's funny because he got his money from he started a hedge fund out in San Francisco, and then he also funded a progressive political action committee. So it's like, yeah, he made his money in a what I believe is a dirty system, and then but is using it to, in part, fund some progressive candidates and stuff. And he ran for president. Also, was it 2020 or 2024? It was the 2020 cycle. In the 2020 cycle, he was one of the people that ran for president.
Yeah, it was the 2020 because Biden went
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He
unopposed.
ran unopposed. Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
was
yeah, so
2020.
he yeah, so now, as it has been with politics, if you fail at one thing, try to go for the other one. Just like Katie Porter, she didn't win her seat in the Senate, so she's running for governor. Same thing here. But I think and it's crazy, like you mentioned, like Katie Porter, there was a moment she mentioned like, hey, like I'm the daughter of farmers, and Tom Steyer had said, okay, yeah, but something that we have in common is that we're both class traders, because even though you grew up in a working class background, you know you're not as supportive of these policies that are going to actually help working families. And I am. I actually want to tax the rich, and even though I am, someone that is rich. So for him to stand up, that is the perfect person that I think they need in California, especially because they're trying to pass this one-time wealth tax, which I believe is going to be a ballot measure this November, for a one-time 5% tax on wealth, and it's only on, I forget what the number was, but it's like like individuals that it's like it's over an amount that you don't know anyone who has that much money. And so it's only going to affect the ultra rich people, and it's a one-time tax. So I think things are trending in a good direction over there potentially. And I think you would be a good person to succeed uh, Gavin Newsom, who is almost obviously going to run for president in 2028.
And I hope that he gets his ass handed to him.
Oh, he surely will.
Because um, for me, being a quote unquote, I don't like the label, being a progressive, because I think when you're left leaning when it comes to anything in this country, then and you use the term progressive, then you like you're like a half a rung from being a communist or a Marxist.
Yeah.
When you start talking about I don't. It's been marketed as redistribution of wealth. I don't believe it's actually redistribution of wealth. I like the term that's used that everybody should pay their fair share,
Hmm.
um, percentage wise. Um, and the tax code needs to be, the loopholes need to be closed.
Hmm.
So, whereas though when the country actually can actually take in the revenue that it should be taking in, then it makes it better for everyday people. You live in New York, you
Hmm.
know what Mandani has been trying to do and actually been doing in the first 4 months of his reign as mayor, and it worked.
Hmm.
It works, and it's helping people, everyday people. Um, we at some point we got away from that in these last 40 years. Um, with slowly but surely, um, just deteriorating the middle class.
Hmm.
Um, and um, we're going to do a deep dive on that destruction of the middle class in a episode, which too many things are. We actually wanted to do it tonight, but too many other things are going on with current events wise to actually do that. 3 hour deep dive into that because it could go on for. We won't be able to talk about anything else when you actually deconstruct everything that's going on. But
Hmm.
what we do want to talk about. You have anything else local before we get into the the sign of the times?
Yeah. I get just one small thing that I saw that came out of Pennsylvania. Um,
Ooh.
and yeah, and it's that so sometime last month, I think it was actually almost a year ago last month, so I think April of last year, the governor, Josh Shapiro, his private home, his residence, it was attacked. Somebody actually um I don't know if it was like a Molotov cocktail, whatever the case was, but they lit his house on fire in an attempt to assassinate him due to his views on the war in Gaza, basically. And Josh Shapiro, he is a Jewish man, but he is also a very public defender of Israel. He has taken money from AIPAC. He's basically a Zionist. Not basically, he is a Zionist. He does believe in the Greater Israel Project, and that's actually one of the reasons, not the main reason, but
Mhm.
one of the reasons
One.
why Kamala Harris did not choose for him to be his her running mate back in 2024 when she took it over from Joe Biden. Um, but so his private residence was bombed or was set on fire. So he needed to do repairs. So he got his house repaired, and he is asking for the state to pay over $1 million for those repairs in his private residence.
Don't they got something like called home insurance?
Yeah, exactly. But I wanted to highlight this because, again, he's seeking for about $1 million of public money to pay for his private residence, in addition to the $40 million that they put to enhance security at the state-owned residence in Harrisburg, the state capital. So this is his private home. He's asking for public funds for his private home. The state treasurer, her name is Stacey Garrity. She said, "Hey, we do not have the legal authority to use public funds on your private home." Backstory for this one, and this one's going to be really funny. One, the Democratic nominee for state treasurer, who was running against Stacey Garrity, she strongly came out. Her name was I have it right here, Eric McClellan. She strongly came out against Josh Shapiro being um a potential pick for Kamala Harris. When very vocal about, hey, no, he's not going to be the right guy. You should not select him. So in order to, because of course he obviously was not selected. So in order to spite her, he went around to the unions in the state. One prominent one was one of the firefighters unions, and he said, "Hey, endorse Garrity. Don't endorse the Democrat and endorse the Republican." Fast forward now, the Republican Stacey Garrity, she is almost certain to be the GOP nominee for governor running against Josh Shapiro this fall. And
Come
so they're seeing her, so her saying, "Hey, we're not going to give you these public funds for your private residence." They're saying this is political because she's going to basically be running against him in this election. So, and I just think it's funny on that end, and also in the sense that she's only in this position, her current position, because you got in your feelings and tried to spite your party. So clearly, you're not one of the vote blue no matter who people, even though that is who most of the establishment Democrats around this country are. So I wanted to highlight that, but also something that came out of Pennsylvania from Josh Shapiro is and this is something that we kind of briefly touched on. I think it was last week. Um, John Fetterman, the senator from Pennsylvania, there are rumblings that they're tr- they're trying to poke him, the GOP, they're trying to poke him to switch party affiliation, and they're saying even if you don't completely switch to being Republican, think about an independent bid. Switch to the independent party. And then there was reporting that came out that John Fetterman, he spends the majority of his time in the Senate where they're not on the floor and the Senate cloakroom. And what the cloakrooms are for both parties, both chambers or both parties in the Senate are basically just rooms that are only for the senators and for maybe like their high ranking staff members.
yeah.
So but it's just like it's free from the media, nothing like. And what they say is some of the older members of Congress or the Senate, which is the majority of them, they're all basically old. So like they go in there and take naps and they go in there and sleep because you're away from the media, you're away from other people, you're away from your staff. So that's where they go. He spends the majority of his time with the Republicans, not
Yeah.
with the Democrats. And they're really trying to poach him to, like I said, if you're not going to at least switch to Republican, just switch to being an independent. So that in the event that Democrats win some of these Senate seats, instead of them potentially having a majority, if he switches to either being a Republican or being an independent, then the Republicans de facto would still be in the majority because it would be basically even split. Is what their thinking is. Josh Shapiro came out and was like, hey, he needs to respect basically, he was asked about it, so he just said he needs to respect the will of his voters, and they voted for him as a Democrat. So he needs to, respect that and keep his party affiliation. But I just think it's getting to the point where the governor is being asked about it and has to address it. So it is like a very like, and there's some reporting behind it. So it is a real push and a possibility that John Fetterman doesn't. And I think it's just such a shame, and it is a disservice to the progressive movement because he was supposed to be one of the guys. Like when he won that election against Dr. It was like, oh, this guy he could be the one. He could be the guy. And then that stroke, it really unfortunately he had a stroke during the campaign. It clearly has messed up his mind, and because he is not the same person at all, and it's just a shame to see.
um, yeah, I've been did some investigating and digging into that situation. And for understanding, if people have switched parties, this is not something that's out of the well, it's not ordinary, but it has happened even in Pennsylvania. People
Yeah,
may not. Arlen Specter, who was a Republican, actually wound up switching parties and became a Democrat in 2008. And a lot of times, and just in the couple years ago, uh, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema both switched from the Democratic Party and became independents. There are currently two independents in the Senate. Bernie Sanders and King,
Angus King. Yeah.
Avis King. But they caught this is the thing. If you're independent, you still have to caucus with either the Democrats or the Republicans. They choose the caucus with the Democrats. So and they are strong Democratic vote.
Hmm.
The issue with Fetterman, and I'm going to say this right, Fetterman needs to be primary. I believe, and you're totally correct, he was very progressive for the times
Hmm.
when he ran. But it seems as though, I don't know if it's because of the stroke and his health issues, or maybe it had something to do with his mindset or whatever. But he does vote with the Democrats 93% of the time.
Hmm.
But it's just the big thing that he is for the war.
Hmm.
And he has voted for nominees that could have been, he could have blocked the plumber that's in charge of DHS now.
Hmm.
He wasn't going to make it out of committee
Yeah.
because Rand Paul ran voted against him, and he didn't have enough votes, and Fetterman voted for him, so he can actually move to a floor vote with the full Senate. So
Hmm.
93% of the time, but it's the 7% that kind of just screws up the reality of the world. I truly believe he needs to be primary, and that's why we spoke off air about this several weeks ago. If the Democrats were to, and it's a possibility for them to take the Senate, they would actually need to hold theirs and get 4 seats.
Hmm.
But I'm actually eyeing 6. There's 6 strong possibilities. Um, and North Carolina, Ohio,
Hmm.
Iowa, um, Alaska, uh, shoot,
Maine.
possibly Maine,
Yeah.
and possibly Nebraska. Nobody's talking about Kentucky though, because uh, the Angel of Death is retiring. Mitch McConnell. No
Yes.
one's talking. No one's talking about Kentucky, and I want people to pay attention to these races. And if you're in these states, to focus on these races because people are hurting everywhere around.
Hmm.
And these people with those R's in front of their names are responsible. Pay attention to how your representative and your state senator, not your state senator, your U.S. senator is actually voting on these pocketbook issues. And if you
Hmm.
are not a racist, because I'm going to call it out the way it is, you people that actually vote for these monsters just want people that don't look like you to suffer, even if it's against your best interest. And that's the true bootlicking and systematic, um, you know, tabulation that these people in power use. You are sympathetic to them because they may be, y'all share the same religion, y'all share the same color of skin, and it's been drawn out in this country for years
Mhm.
I'm okay with doing bad as long as those black folk and those gay folk and those brown folk, they don't get nothing.
Mhm.
Racism is one, time and time again. Um, I find it's funny with Pennsylvania. Dallas, you know what the minimum wage in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is?
I don't know. I'm gonna guess. Is it 1050?
You was close, son. You're only $3.25 off.
Dang. It's
The
still
Commonwealth of
725.
Pennsylvania is still 725. It's one of the few north. I was blown out of the world. Uh, we're from New Jersey, right next to Philly. Dallas lives in New York. I live in Delaware, so we're still in this tri-state area. Whereas though minimum wage in Delaware now is $15 an hour.
Mhm.
Minimum wage in New Jersey is 16,
I think that, yeah, that sounds right.
about
'Cause
16. And
yeah,
minimum wage in New York is what, 17.50,
17.
18?
It's
What is it?
17. It's 17 currently. It's going up. They're also doing a tier system, so like 50 cents a year. So it's
And
17.
and it's
Like,
higher in New York City, correct? Now I'm talking about the state of New York.
oh, that I think the state is 15. New York City is 17.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
But it's almost Pennsylvania is almost $10 less. It's an average of $8.50 less than the surrounding states. Even Maryland is 12.50, and it's on a tier system also.
Mm.
So when Shapiro was asking for 40 million, I believe they don't have the money.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. This is this is a it's northern industrial state, and all the surrounding states are double,
Hmm.
double. I digress. You need to move on. What what do you want to talk about? What we need to talk about?
Yeah, so really want to get into this shutdown of Spirit Airlines. Um,
Ooh.
and it's really big. And I think I'm probably going to bring this up partially in our economic conversation next week. It's like also this
Mhm.
is really going to be a crushing move, specifically for working class and middle class people. So just as an aside to the spirit conversation, traveling is a luxury. It is a first world, it's so the shutdown of spirit is a first world problem. It is not, something that's going to affect a large majority of people and like in the small scheme of things, but in the grand scheme of things, it will. So Spirit Airlines was one of the budget airlines in the country. So they offered no frills rides, basically saying you buy a ticket, your ticket only includes your seat, you don't get to pick the seat, and a personal item. Not a carry-on, not a check bag, a personal item. And depending on what airport you're at, what gate you're at, uh, that personal item, it needs to absolutely be within the dimensions of what they say a personal item is. For Spirit, a personal item is not a book bag. So some airline or some airports, they might say, "Hey, that's a little too big." Other ones, they might not say anything and just let you go. But Spirit was very key in the market for multiple reasons. One, it offers, again, low fares for people who are trying to travel. So if you are a college student, if you're looking for a cheap vacation, or if you're looking to not, you know, spend a whole bunch of money on airfare when you're traveling for vacation, last minute thing comes up, something happens with a family member, you need to instantly get home. Their model was, we get you from point A to point B. They were very efficient. They were one of the most efficient airlines. One, they never had a single accident. They also have a lot of turnover with their gates and their airplanes. So they were a very efficient airline. So they turned over their planes and their people pretty quick. So you go to an airport, you land, you go to the gate. Most times, especially if you're on Spirit, the next people that are going to be on the flight that are right after that, they're already right there at the gate. You get off, they come on, they clean the plane, boom, switch over the crew. Now we're ready to go off to our destination. They offered nonstop flights. So they didn't have like a major hub like Delta does in Atlanta. So they what their specialty was, hey, we're gonna get you from point A to point B. The big budget airlines, they absolutely hated Spirit because if Spirit is on a route, so let's say operating between New York and Miami, so JFK or LaGuardia to Miami, if Spirit's in the route, instantly prices are going to go down 17% because the big airlines, they have to compete with Spirit, also with Frontier, but this is a Spirit conversation. So they have to compete with Spirit, so they need to offer lower rates to try to bring out some of these people that are going to be ultimately just choosing to go with Spirit. When Spirit, like I said, when Spirit is on a route, prices are down 17%. If they're not on a route, prices go up about 30%. With Spirit no longer being around, now the big airlines, the big four are United, Delta, American, and Southwest. Now what they're able to do is charge you whatever you want. Because of Spirit, because of Frontier, because of also smaller regional airlines like Avelo, Breeze, what's Allegiant, a bunch of different ones around the country. Because of that, the big airlines, they introduced basic economy fares, which is basically the same thing as Spirit. Hey, all you're gonna do is get your flight and a personal item. Everything else is an additional price. So you can upgrade to a different class so that maybe you can have a carry-on included. Maybe you can pick your seat. You can get a better boarding group. But they offer these basic economy seats. Now that Spirit's no longer to compete, they can phase those out. And the big reason I really wanted to talk about this is because there's a lot of reasons people are saying, like, hey, this is why Spirit shut down. This was the demise of Spirit. This is what had caused it. With Spirit Airlines, and what a rational observer would say is we had to shut down because we can't keep up with the rising fuel costs. Why are fuel costs rising? Because of the war in Iran. So since the war in Iran started, jet fuel has almost doubled in price, and jet fuel accounts for between 20 and 30% of operating costs for airlines. If you're American, if you're Delta, if you're Southwest, if you're United, you can bear those higher operating costs because you have things like loyalty programs. You have people that you know are going to fly with you. You're charging extra for like between your baggage, between the flights, between upgraded classes and within your fares. You can afford that. Spirit Airlines, Frontier, Allegiant, the smaller regional ones, Allegiant, Breeze, Avelo, they're not going to be able to keep up with that kind of money. So actually, the low budget airline sector, they went to the Trump administration and said, "Hey, like we need a $2.5 billion like relief package. Like we're struggling and like we need some kind of money for the help from the government because." We're at risk of shutting down. So while we're talking about Spirit Airlines, Frontier could be next. Avelo could be next. These smaller regional budget airlines, they could be next as well. And part of the reason that the Trump administration did not give them this money is that the big airlines lobbied against it. They didn't want the Trump administration to bail them out because again, it's competition. So that's what they see it as. So ultimately, Spirit Airlines, they shut down, hundreds of flights canceled, and they shut down overnight. The news came out that, hey, they're going to be winding down, and then they just said, heck, actually, we're just ceasing all operations completely. So there were pilots who were getting ready to retire that found out mid-air that that was going to be their last flight. There were obviously people who were working at the gates, people who were working on the flight attendants working on the planes. found out in real time, hey, we no longer have a job. People within customer service, like all over the country, over 17,000 jobs going just like that. Bunch of travelers stranded just like that. And it's just one, it's a very bad look, but also it's just it's more so for the people that lost their jobs, just to lose it just like that. And the airline industry gets bailed out. The big corporations, they get bailed out all the time, especially the airline industry. Back in COVID, that was one of the big things. They got billions of dollars in relief. And what did they do with it? They decided to do stock buybacks and boost their, again, their portfolios. So what they did was they got that money, but they sent a lot of their pilots. They said, hey, if you're close to retirement, just go ahead and retire early. It was a big thing. There was a strike with the flight attendants unions as well. A bunch of money that the airlines got, and it didn't trickle down. Conversation we'll have next week, trickle down economics. That's what usually when it comes to these big corporations, so whether it be Walmart, whether it be Amazon, these like big box stores or big airlines, big banks, anytime there's a problem within their field, their industry, they will get bailed out because they are the job creators, quote unquote. However, anytime they do get the subsidies, they do get the bailout, it doesn't trickle down. They use it for themselves. CEOs get bonuses, boards get more money. That's how that usually works. So again, high fuel costs are the reason Spirit shut down. But if you ask the Trump administration, the Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, he's blaming the Biden administration for the reason that Spirit Airlines shut down. And the reason is under the Biden administration, Spirit Airlines was going to merge with JetBlue. Backstory: right before that, the announcement that came out that JetBlue was trying to buy Spirit, Spirit was in the negotiations to merge with Frontier. Frontier, Spirit, budget airlines. The thing with Frontier and Spirit that would have made the deal work is that Frontier doesn't operate in a lot of the same routes that Spirit does. There's not a lot of overlap between those budget airline routes. So by merging, it just would have basically expanded the Spirit model. So there would have been more flights around the country for that were more affordable for people. JetBlue got wind of this and said, "Oh no, you know what? We're going to try to swoop in." So they offered much more in cash, like upfront. Hey, we would give you this plus anything on the back end. They came up with a much better offer, and obviously, Spirit said, "Oh, you know what? We'll take that." But the thing is, it was illegal. It was going to be illegal. And even Spirit themselves, the CEO and the presentation that they put together for the shareholders said, "Hey, you know what? The merger is most likely not going to go through because there's some antitrust concerns that exist here. Why? Because JetBlue and Spirit they do operate in a lot of the same routes. So by merging, what it's really going to do is just say, hey, nah, Spirit, we're going to basically get you out of here. These are not going to be JetBlue flights." And what JetBlue came out and said they're going to do, they were going to start ripping out seats from Spirit. So Spirit's first class is like the big front seat. There were going to be more of those. They're going to be less economic, like basic seats. And then they were also going to raise prices over 40%, completely wrecking the Spirit model. And the CEO went to the shareholders and said, "Hey, please do not do not accept this. Like, please try to reject this, vote against it." But obviously, the shareholders they're worried about one thing, and that's money. So they went with that anyway, and they approved basically internally the merger with JetBlue. Joe Biden's Justice Department, the antitrust agency specifically, came in and said, "No, you cannot do that," and they killed the merger. So basically the argument by the Trump administration is because stepped in and stopped the market from doing what the market wanted to do. Now Spirit Airlines failed, and if we just allowed the merger to go through, then they would have had the money to let it happen. But that wouldn't have happened at all. And final thing, one of the reasons that the shareholders ultimately voted for it, even though basically would have ended the merger with JetBlue, even though it would have ended basically the Spirit model, they figured they would get more money liquidating their assets. So airlines they own the gates at the airports, so they're able to control the flights and the routes that are going in and out of these airports. So they figured they're going to make more money selling these gates to other airlines, and basically selling like the planes and all the branding and everything like that. They're gonna make more money doing that than they would if they continued to operate and if they were to get bailed out by the government. So here we are in the situation where now there is less affordable airline travel in the country. And again, like I said, it's a first world issue because most people do not get on planes every single year to travel. It is something if you know, hey, like you have a vacation, something last minute happened with family, you need to go somewhere, you're traveling for school, you're traveling for work. But it's just becoming much harder. Which again, when the cost of everything is going up, just the cost, we say the cost of living, but the cost of existence, the cost of literally everything is going up. Just to hear that the one of the methods of, inexpensive travel is, being stripped away, thousands of jobs being stripped away. It's a troubling sign, especially because it's due to this war in Iran, which he was the no war guy. He was the peace president. And here we are in this situation, and now the airlines are in more control than they had been. And that's just the story of the economy right now.
To piggyback off that, um, 17,000 people out of job. And they got the message, as you stated, they got the message just like we got the message online.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of these people were working, they were in the air, they turned on their phones, and this is the information they got. That I seen where as though one flight attendant set their alarm for 3 a.m.,
Hmm.
got up and looked on the website and seen everything was just basically closed, blacked out, nothing. It was dead.
Hmm.
I had to explain, I had to explain to my girlfriend because I went through the whole JetBlue merger and things like that, and she asked her why didn't they do it, and I explained to her. I said it was two reasons. You did a better detailed deep dive and explained it than I. But for me, I explained to her, and this is part of the reason: the free market.
Hmm.
Um, but what I was explaining to her, I said, no, just like you said, by combining with JetBlue, prices would have rose. And the fact that they did, like you said, overlap, I said, people still would have lost their job.
Hmm.
And I said, because what happens was, and again, first world problem, and who really gives a shit about executives?
Hmm.
But you don't need two CEOs. You don't need two boards. This is the issue with the conglomerates when it comes to media. When you know, when Warner Discovery bought Paramount and Skydance and things like that. So, but those people that work as assistants and people that work in these offices, how many? And then when you talk about overlap, when it's overlap, you still talking about flight attendants and mechanics and pilots losing their job.
Hmm.
And again, what I was explaining, which you explained very well, then the model goes away. There is no more basic economy model because they have almost, of course, not a true blue, but now we're talking about now they are a major one of the big four. They become a big five, and they can actually um, add these flights and make them more, more unaffordable and do more, have more bigger seats in first class and more a business class and get away from the economy model. So we have antitrust laws in this country, and this is the issue where as though the Biden Department of Justice, which is different from the Department of Justice that we have now,
Hmm.
actually did their job and actually blocked these things. Um, so at the end of the day, because of lobbying and because the other ones, things don't go away unless somebody wants them to go away.
Hmm.
And the government actually has to be on board with these things going away. You bailed out Wall Street. You bailed out the American bailed out Ford, the automobile industry.
Yes.
You bail out the farmers every fucking year.
Every year. Yeah.
American farmers are the biggest thing on fucking welfare, and only 2% of the American farmers are black. So the biggest pushers of welfare are corporations and the fucking American farm. Sorry, mom, I cursed, but it's true. And when it comes to, and I'm divulging a little bit, but when it comes to farming, black farmers survive because they never get cut. They never get government subsidies. So when shit goes sideways, like it's going sideways for all these daggone people right now, they, it's just a Tuesday, bitch. It's just Tuesday. Used to it. But with the
Hmm.
Spirit Airlines, it's sad because um they do operate in a lot of the cities that are with people, and they have a very large amount of like people of color that work for them,
Hmm.
and especially in the Atlanta area, um,
And in Florida,
and
a lot in Florida.
In
Hmm.
Florida. So whereas though it's very sad, um, but this is capitalism. This is the free
Hmm.
market, and this is the issue. Whereas though I this is my gripe with the system that is in place. And at the end of the day, when you are basically uh, instead of doing the right thing on the government side, instead of doing the right thing on the shareholder side, they're worried about their bottom line. People are expendable. Let's liquidate this thing and get our money. The same thing when you talk about buybacks and
Hmm.
things of that nature, which 20 years ago was illegal. So these are all things that we're going to cover next week in our deep dive of disruption of the middle class and the economic policies that have
Hmm.
been in place for, since um, 1980 that has put us in this place. One of the we're coming down to the end of our show, but what we need to focus on for the rest of this telecast is the elephant in the room. That's a big ass fucking elephant too.
Yeah.
Uh, the destruction of the voter section 2 of the Voters' Rights Act. I'm pretty sure if you haven't been sleeping over underneath a rock, and even if you are not politically engaged, you've heard tell of the destruction, the Supreme Court decision in Louisiana versus Calais that basically stated Judge Justice Alito wrote the majority stating that um, racism is over, pretty
Hmm.
much. Um, you can't draw lines based on. race. It's insignificant. Basically, what has happened is
And
you there? You still hear me?
Yeah,
Hello? Yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
had to, I had to switch my headphones. I don't know. I muted. Um, that it's so funny now. What had happened was this. It would have came to a point where as though backstory, so people understand about Louisiana. We're going to focus on Louisiana, but this is going to this is devastating the entire South. Um, and you can go into details with that. But with Louisiana is one third black. They currently have 6 districts. 5 of the districts are Republican or majority white districts. They have one district that is held by a Democrat, and they basically pack. It's a way that you pack or you crack. By packing a district is you put the majority of these minority people in one district, so whereas though they cannot, their voting power cannot spread throughout the state and get proper representation. This is the thing. They automatically just assume that black people are going to vote for Democrats. And why is that? Because this is the thing. Black people overwhelmingly vote for whomever is running that is going to do the less harm to them. And over the last 60 years, the Republican Party platform have not been designed to ingratiate themselves to people of color. So for, I know this for a fact. I'm from New Jersey. Jersey's had Republican governors, but they vote blue and Democrat when it comes to presidential all the time. I live in Delaware now. Delaware is a blue state, but had Republican governors because they were moderate and they did things that their policies were aligned with what did the least harm when it came to black folk. We are not a monolith, and the craziest thing is majority of black people are very religious and very conservative. I'm not either one of them, but I'm the minority, even in the minority of my people. So this concept of we can't allow them to have a second district, which would have been equal because of the population and where they're placed at, where they live at in the state, it was going to actually, and under the voters' right action in the way the law was, it would have been a second blue district. And no, 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 no. You can't take anything from these white folks, especially down south.
hmm
The interesting thing is, no one thought that decision would come out last week. And why is that? Dallas knows why is this. But because when it comes to controversial decisions, the Supreme Court usually, you know what they do? They wait until, oh shoot.
I'm sorry. Said.
They usually do. Hello? Now, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
All right, I'm sorry. I start moving around and dropping my headphones and everything else because I'm getting riled up. What they usually do, and I know you know this, Dal, but for our listeners, they usually wait to end of June, to the end of this session, to let all the controversial decisions come out, because then they can go on break for the summer and don't have to answer questions and deal with the shit because they a bunch of bitches. They scary. They don't want to deal with the public and answer questions about their rulings, especially if they're controversial. And then you come back in October and the cycle we done moved on and everybody not forgot, but it's very interesting. Did you know, Dallas, that the night before the night before that ruling came down, that the Orange Warriors had dinner with the six conservative justices and didn't
I
invite the liberal justices?
Man, I didn't see that, but that sounds about
The
right.
night before. The night before. This has all been a coordinated effort for the last 45 years. And I'm going to keep harping on this term. We're going to hear a lot about 45 years. This is Chief Justice John Roberts' life mission to dismantle the Voters' Rights Act. It started in 2000. It started back in 1981 when he first became part of Reagan's Justice Department. Even then, in 1981, 16 years after the Voters' Rights Act was passed, he thought should have been done. He thought it served its purpose and it should be gone. And for the last 45 years, he and many of his ilk from the Federalists, this is the greatest thing, and I'm going on a little rant right now, Dallas, sorry. But this is the greatest thing that Republicans, conservatives, and hateful fucking devils have. They have time and patience, and they just wait and go incrementally from A to B to C until they get all the way to Z. Get judges in place throughout the country. Take over state houses, local municipalities, school boards. This has been a coordinated effort across the country for 45 years. It took them 50 years to overturn Roe. It was a coordinated effort for 50 years. Little chinks from A to B, always to Z. The issue with Democrats is they worry about the fight for the day. They worry about the issue of the day. They try to win the battle for today, but they don't play to win the war.
The long game.
Long game. They don't play chess. John Roberts has been playing chess. That's why He was so young as the Chief Justice. And had his every person that's on that sixth side are from the Federalist Party, an ultra conservative movement, and the Heritage. Was it Heritage? What
The Heritage Foundation.
Heritage Foundation? They're all every Republican president has taken their recommendations on who they should put on the court when a court spot opens up, because this is what they wanted. This is what they've been working on. The reauthorization of the Voters' Rights Act in 2006 was unanimously ratified in the House and the Senate. Those people can't agree on the time of day. But 20 years ago, they reauthorized these with no problem. The law, the John Lewis Voters' Rights Act bill did not pass because of who? Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. The Freedom of Vote Act, whereas though it would have made it whereas though gerrymandering in the nation would be illegal and it would be nonpartisan. Whereas though a Democrat committee or a Republican committee could not draw, it would have to be a third party independent committee.
Mhm.
Why do people not want that? Why do Republicans not want that? If I have it, I think I explained to you people in the past on the previous shows. If you didn't know, I'm gonna tell you again. Because they're a minority party. There are more Democrats that's registered in this country than Republicans. So, in order for them to wield any type of power, they have to use these shenanigan games. They have to draw the maps and the districts so whereas though they pack people together so they have safe districts. At the end, y'all want to hear about blue and red. Ultimately, if this is to go through, you're truly going to have blue and red states. Whereas though it's going to be just like the national map, whereas though like the electoral college, which was based on slavery. These maps are based on black people. And if you don't want to hear it, if you know a Republican,
And you a true Republicans are racist. And you may say if you have friends or this, that, and other. I'm talking about the party itself. The party itself is based on racism. And these maps are based on taking away black people's power. And at the end of the day, we are the lab rats. Nothing stops with us. And you people in this country are seeing that now. It starts with us and then it comes to everybody else. That's true blue.
Mhm.
Why are black people not out here marching and screaming and hollering? We told you. Black people told you when y'all voted for that 34 count felon, we done. All because you didn't want a black woman. Kamala Harris told y'all all this. And all of it came to fruition. And the bottom line is, and I'm sure, Dallas, you can say the same thing. I agree with a lot of her policies. Guess what? Black people vote based on less harm. But guess what? Who feeling the harm? Everybody.
Mhm.
Y'all out here talk about no kings. Y'all out here protesting, and y'all should have at it. You should. Y'all infighting, having this is white people's problem. I don't have a problem with talking about race. Because the fact of the matter is, y'all got a problem talking about race. Y'all want to talk about class. Fuck that. Because y'all want to deal with the race fact. But a lot of y'all waking up and saying, because they treat y'all just like they always treated us. And we told you at a certain point they're going to come for y'all. DEI wasn't for us. DEI was handed out for majority of the time it was white women that got the most out of DEI. If I'm lying, I'm crying. And I ain't crying for shit. What's your points on this? How you feel about this voting rights situation?
No, yeah, I mean, just like you pointed out at the beginning, it's the basically the entire argument is, well, racism's over, so we no longer need these protections. And that's some analysis that I've heard from some of the people in independent media that I follow and listen to too, which is like um, I just don't understand how you could feel like that. One of the takes was, yeah, like, it made sense when the Voting Rights Act passed originally, in 1965, but it doesn't make sense now because, we just come so far and we're just in a different situation. No, we're not. Like you mentioned, um, part of the reason, I wouldn't say it was the main reason, but it definitely was part of the reason Kamala Harris lost that race is because people just did not want to vote for a black woman, a woman of color. They did not want to do it. And you might say, hey, well, Barack Obama got elected to, president twice. All right, yeah, and part of the reason why the Republican Party made the gains that they did, and during the first administration and then going into a second administration, it was a part of it was a backlash to a black president. It wasn't just, oh, well, we're just going to go with the Republican Party right now. No, because the Republican Party was coming out of, a recession, the Great Recession. That's what the Republican Party was coming out of, because it seems like almost every time they go into office, the economy just completely breaks down. However, uh, part of the reason Barack Obama had to deal with the minorities that he did within Congress, and losing so many state seats, and not being able to appoint judges. Like you mentioned, the Republicans are playing the long game, but also they were able to do that because of racism. It was racism. So to act like that no longer exists in this country is absolutely crazy, especially when you see what's going on with the rhetoric and the actions on immigration. And like you said, it doesn't stop and end with us. So a lot of the same things that they're doing now, the way they're treating the immigrants and just people of color, the way they're treating trans people and the entire LGBTQ. Again, I think that's something I said in the show before. Um, we had the bathroom conversation. It was us that had the bathroom conversation years ago. This is for colored people. This is for white people. Now it's you're trans, so you got to use this bathroom, or you can't use this bathroom. It's just changing. Like it's just changing the boogeyman. It's always got to be somebody else. And you know why? Because when they can't do anything about the economic thing, all they have to fall back on is social issues. Like you mentioned, they do not have a winning economic message. And it's crazy because the logic or the thinking is, oh, well, the Republican Party is better on the economy. What has shown you that? What has shown you that? Why? Because they present as being more business friendly. The Democratic Party, as currently constructed, is also very business friendly. But the Republican Party, why? Because they come out and they're fully like, no, we don't want the government involved at all. Is that why? So you think it gives people more of a chance to become rich and millionaires and billionaires and try to succeed in this economy? No, it doesn't work like that. Um, So that's how I feel about it. So obviously, racism isn't over, and like I mentioned, when we had talked about it last week when it first came out, the biggest piece in that is like you need to prove intent that you're intending, to like and drawing your maps or whatever the case is. Like we're intending to exclude or we're intending to distort the minority vote in this district or in this state. No one is going to put that in writing. They're not going to do that. That's the thing with something else that's also going on with Israel's war in Gaza. Part of the thing with genocide claims. So when you try to go to the International Criminal Court with claims, is you need to prove intent that they intended to come into this place and cause mass destruction and harm. They intended to kill this population, excuse me, this population of people. Even if multiple countries sign on and say, hey, we think they're doing this, ultimately, because there's nothing in writing that explicitly says we are dropping these bombs on this land to try to kill all the Palestinians. They're saying, oh, we're going after Hamas tunnels. We're
Come
going after terrorist infrastructure. That's what the coaching it in. It's saying no, we're not intending to kill innocent civilians. We're not intending to kill children. It's just a byproduct of what we're doing, trying to go after Hamas. That's the same thing here. You can't prove intent. You're not going to be able to prove intent. Obviously, it's what they're doing when they try to carve these districts. If you look at some of these maps in the district, they look absolutely crazy, and they do that way. They do that on purpose. And like you mentioned, in terms of, I actually saw the polling on the gerrymandering issue. 69% of Republicans are against partisan gerrymandering. 74% of Democrats are against partisan gerrymandering. That's not elected officials. So the voters, in theory, are against it. However, once that specifically for the Republicans, once the party presents it, say, hey, no, we're going to do this and it's going to help us, then maybe views on it they change a little bit. But also, who's a single issue voter on gerrymandering? No one. If anything, it's going to be in the Democratic Party. It's not going to be in the Republican Party. So, um, what states are now doing coming out of this ruling from Louisiana, and most of them are southern states. What
All
they're
of
now
them are.
doing is, yeah, what they're
Yep.
now doing is they're carving up their minority majority districts. So specifically, Tennessee, Alabama, and South Carolina were some of the ones I just saw when I knew we were to talk about this today. And Tennessee,
Mhm.
in particular, they only have one district that is held by a Democrat, and they're already in plans. I think this ruling just dropped. What was it, April 29th? So it's been just a little over a week, and already all these states are coming out with different plans on basically carving up these minority majority districts. And it's not, regardless of what happens, it could have some effect on the 2026 election, but most likely it won't. It's really going to be in 2028, and
Big
that's
time in
again, that's
2030.
yeah, exactly. So it's going to be again looking ahead in these other elections, but just like you mentioned, they're playing the long game, just like they always are. So even if it doesn't do much in 2026, except for mess with the psyche and the minds of people that actually pay attention to these kind of things, this is for future elections as well. And after this ruling, Donald Trump came out and basically demanded that states do something about it. He basically said, "Hey, like you need to follow SCOTUS's ruling, and you need to redraw these maps, and basically make it fair, even though obviously it's not going to be fair." And but a byproduct of this is that the states are basically choosing voters. Voters aren't going to be choosing their representatives. The party, basically the Republican Party, who hold the state legislatures in a lot of these states, that are going to be doing these redistricting. Um, but they're going to be doing is just choosing which voters are going to be in the thing. Like in Tennessee, some of the plans included like a district that was like 200 miles like across, and it looked like all weird and crazy.